Mark here with Upward Business Consulting, and I'm going to get a little bit controversial today. I'm going to point some fingers, which can be alienating for your audience, but at the end of the day, I think this is an important topic that needs to be addressed. Are you a bad manager? Are you a lazy manager? And there's a good possibility that you are, because that's what's happening in corporate America today. Is corporate America is being filled with bad managers and lazy managers. And I want to help you break that trend. If this resonates at all with you, as your management style or the way that you conduct yourself, it might be something that you want to take a good hard look at and see if there's some changes that you can make. Anymore, businesses run on metrics. Metrics are a horrible, horrible way to manage your business and manage your personnel. Managing by metrics is quite frankly the biggest cancer that is happening in corporate America. According to a recent Harvard Business Review, they even talk about, and I say recent, it's 2019, but they even talk about how metrics are damaging to corporate America in today's business method. I believe that metrics kind of started or stemmed from an old sales book back in the day by a guy named Frank Bettger. And it's an amazing book. The name of the book is How I Raised Myself from Failure to Success in Selling. And I believe it's in chapter 2. And it's been a year since I've read this book. But the premise is he was an ex-baseball player who got into sales. And what he figured out was that if he tracked himself, tracked the number of phone calls that he made, and the number of appointments that he got, and the number of presentations he did, that everything kind of would flush out in the numbers. So if he knew that as long as he was making X number of phone calls, he was getting X number of sales, and there was a ratio there, and he could work on changing that ratio to improve his overall performance. Well, I think that's where managing and using metrics really kind of started and originated and became a common practice. That was a super popular book just a few years ago, even though it was written somewhere like in the 1920s. Now, it's a great concept, but when a great concept gets manipulated and taken out of context, it turns cancerous, because that's actually what cancer is you have a healthy cell that gets manipulated, or not manipulated, but mutated and changed, and then you now have something that doesn't even resemble what it was originally supposed to be. And I think that's what's happened with metrics. And a lot of the companies that I work with, they don't care about anything other than metrics. And the problem with that is metrics are really designed to be kind of an early warning system, so that if you see a number that starts skewing off, you go, wait a minute, there's a problem here. Let's investigate what causes that problem, what that problem is, and see if we can't fix it. They're not designed to be an end-all in and of themselves. And too many managers actually use them as a hammer. And what happens is when the only tool that you have, and this is an old cliche, is a hammer, then everything becomes a nail. And so I know companies out there that they don't really care what anybody does as long as they're managing their metrics and they're hitting their metrics. And are you hitting your metrics? And are you hitting your metrics? And what ends up happening is smart employees, the innovative employees, the best of us, what happens is we start utilizing our mind and our innovation and all the things that make us good entrepreneurial type people to work for you. And when you beat up people about metrics, instead of investing that mental energy into something that's going to grow your business and improve your customer base and improve your customer experience, well, now I'm going to invest my mental energy into manipulating your metrics, because I can. And if that's the only thing that you actually care about is metrics, then that's what your employees are going to do, is they are going to use their mental energy, their innovative energy, instead of creating more profit and serving your clientele well. They're going to use that energy to manipulate a number. So if you require a certain number of phone calls and you're tracking that and you're beating them up on the number of phone calls, is the number of phone calls what you really care about? Or is it quality phone calls that have a certain length or a certain objective of moving a skill set forward? I can set a metric for my salespeople that says, hey, I want you guys to make 100 sales calls a day. Well, as a salesperson, I can sit there and I can dial all day long and make phone calls. How many of those are worth anything? Do I even leave voicemails? Do people even check voicemails anymore? Would 100 texts be more efficient in today's marketplace? What is the goal? Is it to make phone calls or is it to move the sales cycle forward? That's the question you have to ask yourself. I'm reminded of a scenario, and I'll post the link below, of when companies get concerned with managing by metrics, and that's the only thing that they care about. So a few years ago, some of you guys may remember a Wells Fargo got in trouble because their office personnel, their bank personnel, had a metric to hit of X number of new accounts opened up and this sales goal that they had. And so what did? They started getting written up and started saying, hey, these sales goals aren't realistic. 'Cause I know people that worked at Wells Fargo during this time frame. Hey, these sales goals aren't realistic. There's no way we can possibly hit them. And what did they do? They started making up things. They started opening accounts with customers' information fictitiously. And as a result of that, they come under a lot of scrutiny. And there's an article, again, I'll post it below, where they agreed to pay $3 billion with a B dollars to settle criminal and civil investigations in regards to opening accounts without client approval. So the metrics were designed to move a sales number, but what they in fact actually did is it got people to do things that were unethical, illegal, definitely dishonest, and got them to move that metric forward because that metric was important to senior management. And as a result, it cost Wells Fargo a lot of money and a lot of goodwill. So, in order to be a good manager, what do? Well, you've got to get to know your people individually as people. You've got to help them learn what they need to do in order to perform better. What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? And I don't mean do a weird SWOT analysis on your people. I mean actually care about your employees. I mean take the time to get to know them. What's going on in their lives? And how can you help them? How do you help them improve making phone calls or sending emails? Is it writing a script? Is it helping them record their own sales conversations and playing them back? What does that individual employee need in order to move their performance forward? Is it attitude? Is it their ability to, is it a technical skill that they need? Is it, I don't know. I mean, but you've got to take time. You've got to interact with your employees and you've got to find out, hey, what do you need to improve upon? Let's talk about where you're having some struggle. What does it look like? How do we resolve it? Tell me about some of your customers. You've got to provide wisdom to the people who are in your subordinate so that they can improve. That's what your job is as a manager. It's not to use the crutch of a metric. What do your people need to improve? And how do you help them find their resources? I'm sure your company has lots of resources. YouTube has a ton of resources. There are lots of resources all over the place that you can point your people to. If it's attitudinal, there's books on attitude. If it's technique, closing techniques, getting through the door, and obviously I'm talking more along the lines of sales at this point because that's what my background is. But it could be, who knows? But there's a ton of resources out there that you should be able to talk to your people, figure out what they need, help them find it, and move forward. And stop being a lazy manager. I think we have a tendency to be lazy managers because senior management in companies looks at numbers. Our quarterly reports are filled with numbers, and it's real easy if you're a manager to, hey, I made my 5-minute phone call to my employee. We talked about their metrics and their overall performance, and now I'm going to go back to watching TV or playing with my kids or doing other things that are honestly you not doing your job. So if you manage by metrics, I'm going to tell you to stop managing by metrics, get to know your people, see what they need to improve, love on them, care for them, give them wisdom and guidance, and help them. I'm going to play an excerpt from a counseling session that I was doing with one of the people I was counseling with, where this exact topic came up. And I'll cut to that right now. So what's happened is you've taken a people person who is really, really good at connecting with people and getting people to like him, and people buy from people that they like. And what's happened is he has now diminished that side of himself, the people person, and has turned into a metrics manager. So now he is changing who he is to manage the metrics of his customers, because he is being managed by those metrics. So you're taking a charismatic people person who can get people to buy from him, and now he is looking at numbers and facts and figures and metrics, and he's diminishing his best talents of himself, the ability to connect with people, simply for the fact that somebody is managing him by metrics. So now he's managing his customers by metrics, which is diminishing his natural talent and his ability to get it done. And it's tragic, and it's a waste of natural, unteachable talent. So as you heard in that segment, what would you do with that employee? What would you tell them? And the one thing that's the most poignant in there to me is where I said it's a shame that you've taken somebody who is a caring, considerate, good salesperson who's got a really, really good closing, and they are now throwing that away, and they're no longer wanting to be a people person and to be helpful to the clients for the sake of hitting a number. That is an absolute shame in our marketplace. And I know it's commonplace in today's market, but it's that kind of thing that puts companies out of business and allows their competition to thrive. I've said it before, and I'll say it again, and I'll say it over and over again. People buy from people that they like, trust, respect, and admire. Well, the thing as a manager that you have to remember is your employees are your customers. So it's up to you to get them to like, trust, respect, and admire you. And the only way you do that, just like in a sales process, you can't do that by throwing data at somebody. The only way that you get people to like, trust, respect, and admire you is when you take an interest in their life and you pour yourself into their life and into their improvement. If you're doing anything other than that, stop being a lazy bad manager. Care about your people and help them grow and improve who they are. And if you got anything out of today's session, please subscribe to the channel, like and share today's video. Have a great day.